Hi everyone, I'm Denis Douthett, and I'm the lead designer for Conan Exiles. We asked you to send in your questions about the Age of War Chapter 3, and today I'm here to answer them. No, the number of attackers is static, so you can think of it like any other camp or dungeon you would encounter in the world. Yeah, any thrall can be made to sit in those tavern stools, and in the future, we want to expand this system so any chair that you have in your base could be used in the same way. When we ship with Chapter 3, though, it'll just be a smaller selection of stools. We chose a building set with a couple of caveats in mind. One was that it had to be a building set that was part of the base game that everybody had, so anyone could have access to that building set. And the other is that it had to be a Tier 3 building. So out of the gate, we're limited in the choices that we have. But even with those restrictions, we picked the one we felt looked the most Stygian. Unfortunately, in this case, it wasn't an option to make a new building set because it is an extremely expensive task for us to make new building pieces. And with the rest of the production that was scheduled for the release, it just wasn't in the cards. If we can significantly increase performance in the future with the base, we might be able to go back and add some more decorations to make it feel more like a Stygian base. But for the moment, we keep it a little bit on the more sparse side, so performance is higher. And as far as SIPTA goes, we look at SIPTA as like a very separate experience from Exiled Lands at the moment, so we don't want to cross-contaminate the items there too much. You might be familiar that there's a pretty big power difference between the two maps. Great question. Learning a tavern is pretty simple, actually. You can get the actual recipe at level 20 by just spending 3 knowledge points in the knowledge menu. But to get that tavern to come to life, you'll need a barkeeper. And to get a barkeeper, you'll have to run a purge. We do have some plans that in the future, we'll try to spread that barkeeper out to more places in the game, but when Chapter 3 releases, the only source of a barkeeper will be to rescue them from the purge. Yeah, we do have some more Yamatai stuff that you haven't seen yet. There are definitely a couple emblems, and I believe some emotes coming as well during this chapter. And because Yamatai is one of the core factions that we have in the world, you can definitely expect to see more in the future. No, the tavern won't have any ambient music whenever we release in Chapter 3. I mentioned this on stream before too, but we also want to add a little more rabble, and that won't be a thing that you get as soon as it comes out. But we do have longer term plans to let you add the music. Yeah, the raid's just like any other dungeon you would encounter in the world, so after some period of time, the dungeon will reset, and it'll be there to raid over and over again. We don't want to amp up the rewards in the purge too much. It would be really easy to go over the top with them. But we are working on, again, a future release that will allow us to add more types of thralls into the purge rewards. Right now, you can only get followers that actually follow you in the world, like dancers, fighters, so on. But we are working on an update that will allow even crafter thralls to follow you in the world, and once they can follow you in the world, they can go in the cage. Stay tuned. There's no difficulty restrictions on when a barkeeper can appear. It's just a simple roll of the dice. So you can get it in a level 1 purge, you can get it in a level 6, level 10, and anything in between. We're working on plans to solidify that a bit more right now. I view this as a system that we'll continue to use to introduce new content into the future. So while we might not ever see another base as big as the Stygian raid, I do want to see more of them, both on the Exiled Lands and the Isle of SIPTA. I think the more crushing and raiding we can get in the game, the better. There's a handful of reasons for this, actually. There's 2 really major ones, and the rest are a little boring, so I'll just give you the 2 big points. The first reason is just that we made a lot of stuff in Chapter 2, and during the development of Chapter 3, it was like 95% done. And if we didn't commit the time to finish it now, there's a chance it would never be done. So we want to finish that content and get it to everyone. And a fourth chapter was a perfect vessel to deliver that content. The other is, again, a bit on the boring side, but it's really about production time and how long it takes for us to make a feature or something to ship to everybody. So by adding a fourth chapter to our ages, it allows us to work at a cadence that will let us create higher quality, more polished, and more iterated upon updates. First, with this one, I just want to make it clear that the only thing SIPT is not receiving is the actual RAID base, and there's a very good reason for it. It's because it was a very complex system to implement. And just to give you some context, we are still iterating and polishing that system now, with our release candidates right around the corner. So we're doing everything that we can to make sure that one RAID plays as good as possible. And with the size of our team, it just would not have been feasible for us to do one on both maps and ensure we're delivering a quality experience on both maps. So that being said, like I mentioned before, I do want to be able to deliver this content to the SIPTA map. It just might not be in the form of a raid as big as the Stygian Fortress on the Exiled Lands. Yeah, it's here to stay. Yeah, thanks. It is exactly what I was talking about before with making crafter thralls that can follow you. That's the idea. So there will never be a simply item-based thrall anymore. You'll never knock a person out, put them in the wheel, and then just have an item you transfer around workstations. Everyone that you convert or otherwise recruit through the tavern or whatever encounters in the world you might have will be a person that does physically follow you. And because of that, you'll be able to dress them as well. And then it'll use that green outline system to assign them a job at a workstation. Stay tuned. The area to build the tavern is actually really big, but we just don't show it because it is so big. We think that if you place the bar down and you've got seats in a space that you would remotely call a tavern, they're definitely going to be able to sit there. And as for who can interact with those patrons, at the moment, anyone can hire any patron from any tavern if they have the money to do it. We are open to feedback on that, but from our position, it's kind of like the mercenary is a mercenary. You know, they want the money, they're going to follow whoever has it for them. Currently, you do have full access to anything in another player's tavern except the barkeeper's contact list. So only members of the owning clan can hire someone to come to the bar, but everything else, like her inventory and the patrons that are already there, is open to anyone that you let inside. You do have to let those people inside still. We do have some long-term goals for Exiles, and part of that is keeping the content that we already have interesting. And it's a pretty cool idea that complements that, wouldn't you say? We know that people want this. It's a thing that came up in internal testing before it ever even went to the test server. So I can't give you any official information on it yet, but we do know people want it. Yeah, everything on the barkeeper should be moddable. Not in a really meaningful way at the moment, and I know that there will be people that want to have access to it, so we're aware of it. I just won't be able to give anything that is really very usable whenever it comes out. All right, that's all the questions we have for now. We got a ton of questions, but we didn't really have time to answer all of them. Thanks to everyone who did give us a question, and I hope that you all stick with us and join us for the Age of War Chapter 3 and beyond.